Hello, we are live. Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name's Lenny, and this is Let's Talk About. And we have the lovely Heather, who's now down there, who's normally here.
I've been demoted.
No, no.
You can move around if you want. I don't know how to do that.
No, fine.
Doesn't
Fine.
matter.
I can talk to you.
Maybe at the bottom if you want.
But as a special treat for everyone, we've also got the lovely Andrea over there. See, I get the right way as well.
Actually, if I leave briefly and come back, and then you let me back in, then
No, it's fine, man. It doesn't matter which way we are. Doesn't matter.
It's fine. I was kidding.
I think you can change it by yeah.
Oh,
I think you just
Oh,
pull,
and you're busy.
hold them and then
You're
pull
busy.
them down. But it makes no difference.
Well, there you are.
Anyway, I hope everybody is well and good. This week's topic is basically ghosts, the afterlife, what you think happens to us when we die. Maybe you believe there's reincarnation, maybe you don't. Whatever it is that you believe, we're going to discuss it. Basically, that is the point of this. And I have put Andrea's and Heather's channels in the description box below. So if you're not subscribed, which I'm sure you all are, but if you're not, then please go and subscribe. So there you go. So who wants to start? Where shall we start?
Well, you picked a big topic for this week, didn't you? Blimey.
Yes. I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm probably erring on the side that there's nothing after death. That's my viewpoint. Probably. I'd like to think there was something. I'd like to think that our loved ones who have passed over are around us and guiding us, and I'd like to believe that because it's very comforting. Especially because I know, like, my mum would just be kicking ass, you know what I mean, like that kind of thing. Do you know what I mean? It's just really comforting, that kind of thing. And also the couple of things that's happened to me over the years that made us think, oh, you know, whether it be that the smell of a certain person that's passed away, or even once seeing my granddad when I was really young. But yeah, so that's kind of where I'm at. I'd like to believe it, but my brain is sort of saying, no, it's not true. It's you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
I mean, none of us can be sure, can we? I think that's the thing. You really can't be sure. You might have an intuition or a feeling or an idea of what you think might happen, and that can change through your life. What you think when you're young can change hugely as you get older. Yeah, I mean, obviously, even amongst witches, if you ask them, you're going to get 1,000 different opinions of 1,000 different witches, because it's a very personal thing, and there's not really a doctrine around it in Wicca per se. A lot of people do believe in reincarnation, and a lot of people have contact with spirit and their loved ones who've gone before and all that. I don't directly, so my jury's out a bit on it. But yes, I have my own little theories. But again, they are. It's just a hypothesis. It's just a thought. And who the heck knows? I mean, really, I'd love someone to come back and tell me. Go, oh, well, actually, it's this. And like, oh, okay.
That would be good, wouldn't it? And what about you, Andrea?
My pendulum swung firmly onto, I totally think and feel I know that there is something other than us, and that we're here having a human experience. We are spirits having a human experience. We move back to spirit once our bodies die. That's my very, very full belief. I don't believe in there's a white man in the clouds with a white beard and we go to this place called heaven. There is, I think that we've called certain things over the years as humans. Because obviously there are so many different words and explanations for God. In Western culture, we call them God, but there's so many different names for it and so many different ways that you can say it. Some people like to say the universe or the force or anything like that. We are live now, so please do not swear. That's Nick.
Please don't swear. Please don't rebuild the house.
So like, even like Mother Nature, do you think? Like people believe in Mother Nature, and so like that could be seen as a god.
Yeah, some people see it as a goddess, don't they? Very much a sort of a feminine. And I mean, it's difficult because as I've moved through many years of kind of practicing, I'm kind of more almost on where Andrea is, in the sense of thinking of spirit overall rather than god or goddess, male or female, because actually that doesn't work in a lot of ways. It's a useful hook for us to hang our connections on or to get in touch with it. But I don't think it's an absolute thing anymore. So my views have shifted a bit like the sands over time. I suppose I do feel that, yeah, in a way, we're not our bodies. Our bodies are kind of very interesting and useful things to be having, but I don't think that's what we are. I think we do move beyond it, but whether our molecules and energy dissolves and just joins the collective, or whether there's something a bit more concrete the other side, I'm really not sure one way or the other on that.
And we won't know until it happens.
Of course. It'll be
true.
interesting, whatever it is.
That's true.
Yeah.
I'll just say a few hellos before we go on any further. Hi Joan, hi Sylvia, hi Jewel, hi Kate, hi Chrissy, hi Junie. Jewel says, I believe our energy just goes into the earth and we live on in people's memories. And Sylvia said, we are all stardust.
Well, yeah, I kind of lean more to that than anything else, I suppose, really.
Yeah, that's what we're made from, and our energy comes from just the energy that's around. The energy that powers us is a particular format, perhaps. But yeah, I mean, I don't believe. I suppose I have an idea that rather than believing in reincarnation directly, that you kind of like you just kind of almost slide into another being and become that in a lifetime, having of course forgot all the previous, because it'd be too much to handle. I'm kind of more of the opinion that we kind of go back into a collective, back into the source of where, whatever words you use for where we come from, and that people can tap into that, and that they can connect with spirit in the form of somebody that they've seen before. But that doesn't mean that person is existing or has kind of popped out back into the world as a being. That sounded rubbish, but I think I know what I meant.
I think I know what you mean as well.
I know what you mean as well.
Yeah.
It's like an essence of them.
Our spirits we can come back into another human life. But here's something that might blow your mind. I also think the human life is not the only life form that's in the ether, that's in the universes and galaxies and whatever. So I think that whatever source we come from, we could potentially be living some other life on some other planet. Which,
because all life and all form has its energy.
But it doesn't mean to say that it doesn't exist, because I think that would be incredibly arrogant to think that we are the only intelligent life form in space. I think,
there's a question mark over how intelligent the human race is, given their track record.
Exactly.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's because people go, oh, we talk about ghosts and we talk about them in this sort of what you see in the movies where they're slightly see-through, you can put your hand in them, they can walk through walls. It's very, I don't know what the word is, like elaborated, is that the word?
It's very stereotypical, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's what a ghost is.
Yeah. Or like, you look at Casper, or you look at like a bed sheet with holes in it, and that's the sort of visuals we're given. And I guess it's the same with alien life form and the fact that there's something else on the planet. It is very stereotyped in this little green man, take me to your leader, that kind of thing, which is so far away from what I would think was out there. Do you know what I mean? So yeah. It's very strange.
Yeah, Fauna said, Sylvia there said, most of the elements of our bodies were formed in stars over the course of billions of years. Absolutely. And multiple star lifetimes. And we as this form are just part of that cycle, so particularly physically, but energy also gets cycled around. And I think that's, you know, some people each have a unique energy, although there's people who have very similar energies. But I do somehow think that it's an experience to be in physical form and able to enjoy that. I think it's very important that we maximize it in whatever way we can.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that we have a physical form, I think, is quite amazing, really.
Yeah. And I feel that we are given that opportunity to have a physical form in order for our souls to grow, in order for our spirits to grow. And, you know, that's my belief anyway. That
the natural tendency is to think there should be some form of evolution going on, because that happens, but things also regress as well as improve, so it's not always as straightforward.
Well, we're seeing
but
regression.
I do think the experience, yeah,
in the human race, aren't we, currently?
Yeah, so it's not always a progression forward, but I do think that the learning is the part of it, the actual experiencing, and just you know, actually experiencing the whole thing.
Yeah.
If you're lucky enough to have the privilege to do that. Yeah.
In terms of reincarnation, I think we have that opportunity to come back again to learn more, to correct perhaps what we've not done in a previous life, or to learn something that we haven't learned then. And, you know,
a lot of the past life and people who do soul retrieval and various things where you kind of go back and access a past life, it is fascinating, and I've seen it done, because obviously they use hypnotherapeutic techniques to get there. But it does interest me that quite often people have been Cleopatra or something, you know, something significant, and I think that's tapping into a collective experience. But there have been occasions where people have clearly hooked into a very, I would say mundane life, but, you know, an everyday life, and they've been able to fact check and actually find out that that person truly did exist. They're the ones that really grab my interest, because I do think there's a possibility for that. I don't think any of it is set in stone. I think there is potential for all of that.
So what fascinates me, really fascinates me, is when very young children talk about their previous life and their other mummy, and they remember it at a very young age and tend to start forgetting as they grow and get older.
But once they hit proper consciousness, they do tend to lose it. My son was the same. He told me that he'd had other parents and that he'd come to Earth.
Oh, wow.
So, but now we poo-poo the idea completely. Obviously, he's 15, but at the time, it's kind of like, oh, okay, you know, you're not like my other parent. Okay, tell me more. You just try and get them to talk. But it is fascinating. It's because they're not fully conscious and they haven't got that edit that goes, this cannot be real. They just purely pour forth whatever's in there. It's fascinating when they're that age.
So I'm in trying to understand it. If we're all this energy and we all go back to, say, stardust, right? And then humans have made through that energy over, I don't know, however many time, and you come back, but you're only a little part of a previous. So there's a part of a previous life in there that remembers, which is what you're a whole new person, for instance. You know what I mean? And as part of a previous life, which is how you said so many people remember being Cleopatra, because they've all got a tiny particle of that energy.
Absolutely, they've tapped into it. Yeah, they've tapped into it somehow. But there are some very real life experiences, and I've seen people do it. Not everybody can get to it, but that whole idea that you've kind of cycled around, and we all know people that have definitely been here many times before, may have learned something, or maybe trying to, as you say, trying to kind of correct and relearn and do things differently. But it is fascinating that, I mean, I've talked to lots of people with experience of it, and
I mean, sometimes you refer to somebody as, oh, they're an old soul, because you just have that feeling of they're very wise, they've been here before, kind of thing. And
just to see a couple of questions from the chat and stuff. John says, I don't know what I believe. Logically, billions have died, and the thought of everyone meeting specific relatives is mind-boggling. Donna says, hello Donna, by the way. I 100% live in that, but I 100% believe in life after death. I used spirit boxes to try and communicate, and too many circumstantial things have happened for me to now not believe, whereas before I didn't.
Interesting.
Kate said, there is more in heaven and earth than we know about. It's not about believing in ghosts, just being open that we don't know everything.
True.
John says, we progress over time. That's fascinating. We're going into sci-fi times.
Yeah, and I do find that
humans
very
created sci-fi. Humans created Star Wars and Harry Potter, and all of those classic stories. And I wonder why, because we know the stories. We know.
they're
It's
familiar themes, aren't they?
And that's why those things are so successful, because we tap into them because they're familiar to us.
But also science fiction, someone gets an idea, there's no way it can possibly be made reality, so they put it into a story or a film or something like that, and then because that idea is that idea came from the collective somehow, they intuited it, they plucked it out, and then as more and more people tap into it, they've made able to make these things happen. Space travel was a dream, and then somebody actually found a way to make it happen. But without the ideas and the kind of the mad imagination, it would never have been possible it would never have happened.
Susan says, I'm 100% atheist, although I don't like that word. And to paraphrase my atheist hero, Ricky Gervais, we don't need the supernatural. Nature is super enough.
Absolutely, and that's why it's not other than nature. It is nature. It's just a form we don't understand yet.
Yeah,
that's what it is. It's just the science hasn't explained it yet. We haven't got to grips with it, and that's all.
Yeah.
Donna said, I was one that needed to have proof for me to believe, and I've had that proof.
Fantastic.
Jill says, I agree there is most likely life elsewhere. Sylvia says, I just want to be a tree.
Possibly you will at some point. I'm sure we've all been trees at some point.
Yeah. Susan says, and unlike Lainey, I don't find the idea of afterlife comforting. The idea of existing forever is horrifying to me. I want an end, a full stop.
Yeah, I don't think people genuinely believe they'll exist forever unless they've got a very interesting.
Yeah, because to me, you won't know. Like, not really. I mean, obviously, some people seem to have little bits that come back if that is the case, and that come back or they remember briefly, especially as a child, maybe. But yeah, it's not something you would know. You'd have a totally different life.
Yeah.
John says, are we destined to live a set time, or is it down to chance, the length of our life? Is it chance?
Well, I think, just from reading and listening and I think that, and I don't know, obviously, because nobody knows 100%, but I think that we choose. I think that we choose the time that we're going to live on this planet, and we have a certain time we're going to leave this planet. I also think we choose people to live with, and people that we're going to know and travel along our little journey with. Anyway, that's just I'm obviously just putting out my theories, but
that's
all they're going to be.
Exactly. Yours is valid as anyone else's. So Sylvie said, or any stigma of that can't be true. I don't know what that was referring back to now.
It's when somebody just dismisses someone's experience by going, that can't be true. But, well, it obviously is true for the person who's experienced it. That doesn't make it universal necessarily, but you shouldn't invalidate somebody because their belief is different to yours. That's kind of rude, really.
Yeah. John says, are these experiences people who believe they have seen a dead person, or they are lying?
Well, that's the question.
Yeah. Now, I mentioned when I was young that I saw my granddad. So I was pregnant with David. I hadn't told my parents yet. I I wasn't sleeping very well. I wasn't in a very good place. Felt like I had the weight on my shoulders because I had to sort of explain to my parents. And obviously, you know, being 17, it's a young age to have a child, blah, blah, blah. So there was a lot going on for me. You know what? Remember leaving the house and I was walking down the street, and I got halfway down the street, and I seen, so my head was down, to be honest, and I seen feet walking towards us. So I looked up, and this man smiled at me, and I smiled back at him. He was holding the little girl's hand, and I walked not even 2 steps further and spun round because I thought, oh my God, that was my granddad. You know what I mean? Like, and he couldn't have gotten to the end of the road. He couldn't have gotten down a path because it was too far. And I remember standing in the street for about half an hour, just thinking, I just see my granddad. I did, well, where is it? You know, and I was going through all this in my own brain. And I remember on that night, I told my mum and dad that I was pregnant with my mum, actually. And I felt like the weight of the world had lifted. And I told my mum about seeing my granddad and the little girl, and he said that him and my nana had lost a little girl, which I didn't know. So that was something about it. But I think the fact that he smiled at us made me tell my mum, and whether it was just because I had lack of sleep, you know, I was stressed and I wanted to believe that. I don't know whether my granddad could have done that in some way. I don't know. Like, I think as I've got older, when I was younger, I just instantly believed it was just my granddad and that he'd come to tell us everything was okay and blah, blah, blah. As I've got older, I think I've probably put it down to my own stress. I would love to have thought, like, believe it was him, because I know that if there was any way he could have helped me, he would. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so there was that. But as I've got older, I think I've looked at it as more, and I think that's partly because of the mental health issues I went through in the hospital, like how bad that got, how, you know what I mean, that made us sort of do that with that as well. But who knows?
Yeah, exactly. Lots of people have those sort of experiences, and it is unique to you. You know, someone else walking along the street would not have seen it. And the thing is, people kind of think of the mind as being very separate from anything beyond that. Well, I mean, really, it's all just sort of connected. You've got your conscious mind, which is the bit we sit in most of the time, that's kind of like, oh, no. And then we've got the unconscious one, which is far deeper, far more powerful, and has far more information and can tap into a lot of this other stuff if we allow it. And sometimes you have to be in a particular state of mind to access it. So quite often being tired, being under stress means you have kind of let your guard down a bit, if you like. Your conscious mind's gone sort of look the other way momentarily. And then you'll experience something. Whether it's real or not doesn't actually matter. The point is you experienced something that meant something to you. So it was important.
Yeah. Well, it all really started for me when my great nan died when I was 7. I've been very close with my great grandparents and my grandparents maternally, you know, all my life. And she died when I was 7. So that was the biggest grief I've known, you know, the first one I'd really known. And we were living in my great granddad's house at the time because my mum had moved in to help look after her before she died. And the night that after she'd died, I woke up in the middle of the night, and I was sharing a room with my mum, so we both had single beds next to each other. And I was curled up facing the wall, and I felt somebody sat behind me, and I just thought it was my mum. And I turned over, and there was nobody there, and my mum was in bed. And I said to her, "Why were you sat on the bed?" And didn't realise she was asleep. So I kind of said it a bit more loudly, thinking she hadn't heard me. So why were you sat on the bed? And she woke up and said, "I wasn't sat on the bed, I was asleep." And at that moment, I knew without a shadow of a doubt that that was my great nan sitting there. So the next morning, I went in to see my great granddad, and I told him what I'd experienced. And he just so matter-of-factly, really matter-of-factly said, oh, yeah, she came in to see me. We had a good chat. It was lovely. She came to say goodbye. And he was just so matter-of-fact. He said, yeah, she came in the bedroom and we had a chat and she said goodbye. And I was like, and I remember going into school that day, and of course, nobody believed me.
Yeah.
7-year-old.
That's the stigma, isn't it? People not believing children because they think children, for some reason, are more unreliable witnesses than adults.
Yeah.
Probably the exact opposite, to be fair.
But that was my first ever experience of that.
Yeah, and in a way, it is sort of normal. It shouldn't be treated as something very strange. If you've got a strong personal bond with somebody and their energy, then why would you not have some level of connection to whatever form they take next? You know, and
because my nan had a really vivid dream about her coming to say goodbye as well that night, and I just think she was saying her last goodbyes, and then she was off.
Well, obviously, in a dream, it's an easier place to accept strange things happening. When you're wide awake, or half awake, in sort of the everyday world, it's a lot. It can be a bit of a shock, and people don't react well. So I think a lot of stuff does happen in dreams. I certainly get more stuff in dreams than anywhere else where I've had connections with people.
Yeah, I've had a lot of that as well. Ones that you just feel were real. When you wake up, you're like, oh, I feel like that really happened to me.
It stays with you and it changes your mood and it changes how you're feeling. Whereas most dreams, they just fade away with a wisp of a day, don't they?
Yes. Yeah.
But that's why I always say to people, writing down your dreams is useful, because whether it's messages from something sort of that you're connected to, that gone beyond, or whether it is actually your own inner mind telling you something, and we can't always tell the difference.
Yeah.
Does it matter if you've got that sense of connection? And again, does it matter if it's real? Because science can't prove it yet.
Yeah. What is real? Because we experience the world through our mind anyway.
Absolutely,
so
it's a filter.
Who's to say that what we're experiencing when we're asleep is not real? I often ask.
There are interesting theories about that, aren't there?
Sylvia says, do you think we sometimes meet people we've known before?
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. I have a very strong feeling that I've definitely lived a life with Ellen in it before. I feel like we've lived another lifetime together before, in some form.
I've met people and connected with them in a way that I felt like I've known them for years. You know what I mean? I feel like I've known some people that I've connected with, and just think we've had a couple of conversations, and then Christ, I feel like I've known you for years and years. It's kind of weird.
Yeah. So you're connecting on lots of levels and not just on a conscious mind thing of what's been said in a conversation. It's energetic, it's familiarity as well. And that's not always, that can backfire sometimes. If something's familiar, it's not always for a good reason. But that's a whole other subject. But, that sense of connection with someone's energy, or they've got a familiar energy, I think it's usually your inner mind, your unconscious mind, that's kind of giving you those things. Yeah, very real.
Yeah. Susan says, I don't think people who believe they've lived before or seen ghosts even, are lying. She says, I think they are mistaken. I think the brain is a complex and fallible thing.
It is indeed. Yes, it's a bunch of jelly in your head. I mean, the fact that it works at all is more than beyond remarkable. Yeah, and what I love is the fact that science now is trying to study some of these phenomena. It's mapping what's going on in the brain in different states, and it's a whole neuroscience is expanding. And I think there will be some answers to some things, but probably not all of it.
Donna says, just look at some of the dreams we have. Sometimes I could never consciously think of half of the things I dream about. It's got to come from somewhere.
Yeah, you know a lot more than you think.
She also said, you don't have to see a dead person. You can experience so many other things to experience a spirit.
Yeah, because I rarely see. I don't actually get visual. If I see somebody, it's quite often, as you were saying earlier, Elaine, that's a sense of smell or something, or a familiar
smell or
feeling,
sound.
Or, a sound as well. Sounds.
Yeah.
Junie said, there have been so many occurrences in my life that make me believe in the spiritual side of things. And then Donna said, Lainey, my partner has seen 2 people disappear like that. 1 minute they were there and the next they weren't.
Yeah. Now, quite often what will happen is they say that it can be like an echo. If where you're actually getting somebody within a place and there's an echo of it, where you get some form of manifestation. And that would be very temporary, just like something playing through it, like a little bit of a recording, like a TikTok, really short and then gone. But yeah, all kinds of theories on that. Amazing if that happens.
Joan said, bereavement can be devastating. Belief that life goes on helps so many people.
Yeah.
Can
so
do.
if we see it that way, and we're all, just we don't know, and there's absolutely nothing there, then what's the harm in feeling and believing that it does?
Well, it's anything that makes life makes more sense. It's trying to make sense out of something that doesn't make sense.
Because by the time we're gone, then it won't matter anymore, will it?
Exactly.
No.
Elvis will have left the building.
Yes.
Hi Stephen, he said, I have only one ghost story experience. I bumped into someone I was at college with. We chatted for a bit. I then saw another mutual friend and mentioned my recent encounter. They said it wasn't possible because the person I'd been at college with had been found frozen and dead the year before on a mountain.
Wow. Blimey.
Wow. That just chills all over. Oh,
yeah.
goodness.
Gosh.
That's it.
Follow that one, anybody out there? I don't think I can. Wow.
Sylvia said, at key emotional times I smell my beloved Nan. She loves 3Ps, wore their perfume and had the flowers in the garden and house.
Yeah. Sense of smell connects into a very, very deep part of the brain, and it triggers memories, which is why people have such strong reactions to smells. And it really bypasses the conscious mind. So, yeah, it's a great way. And it's why churches and other situations use things like incense, and because it's smell, and why everyone loves perfume so much. Because it's evocative. It's immediately can take you into a completely different space mentally.
Hi, Jasmine. Well, it was funny because after my dad died, about sort of 6 months later, I remember a really strong smell of tar. And my dad used to work on the roads. So whenever he worked away and he would come home every sort of 6 weeks. And I loved the smell of tar because I knew my dad was home, because he obviously all of his stuff smelled of tar because he was doing the roadworks. But you don't see it now, like out and about with the. You used to see them resurfacing roads out and about, and you'd smell the tar outside, but you don't now. But about 6 months after he died, I smelled it, and I thought it was outside, but it wasn't. So, yeah. Joan said, a friend of mine believed that if you believe in God, even on your deathbed, that you'd be saved, and you wouldn't be saved if an atheist. If she had been born in a different faith or country, it wouldn't be. Where we are born and the faith we are born into can be key.
Absolutely. And I do think in some way that shapes people's experience of all of this sort of thing, because whatever kind of imprint you've got, if you like, expectation, I think the brain does connect the dots and create that.
Yeah, I was raised Catholic, and I really got to a point where I just used to sit there thinking, I don't agree with this. I don't agree with this. I don't think that.
You wouldn't have been the only one.
And so I don't, I've been to church for a long time, well, Catholic church anyway. But yeah, totally. There are a lot of people that believe, especially in, it's a generalization, but especially in the Catholic Church, or a lot of people are very judgmental and very narrow-minded.
It's very set, isn't it? The rules is the rules, and they're quite harsh.
Bible, no, it is. You've just interpreted something.
Yeah. I remember when I was a kid. Well, I was probably around sort of 8, 9, 10, somewhere around there. I used to quite like going into the different churches and just seeing what the feels were. So I'd go and sit in and have a look at the architecture in there, and have a wander about and a listen and try and work out what it was people were getting from the place, because it didn't quite work for me. But if you go into a church where there's a lot of people and they're doing something, the collective entry is really rather nice, usually. But you'll get that in any group of people doing it with a common purpose of mind. So, but I did enjoy the idea of trying these different flavours, if you like. Yeah. None of them were for me, but you've got to start somewhere. And it was interesting.
Yeah, I like to be open-minded about every belief and religion, and I think we can take something from everything in some ways.
Yeah, they're never all bad and they're never all good and they're never completely correct, because generally, especially with an older religion, you're going on Chinese whispers of what someone's written down, and it's been translated and mistranslated, and bits that didn't quite suit certain popes people were edited out and lost along the way. But that's human nature. It tells you more about the people than it does about the religion, really.
Yeah.
Nick said, just pop in Asda, do you want anything?
Well, there you go. Get your shopping list out. Give them a list.
He's starting a list because the side chat are giving them things.
Still, do Asda sell Ouija boards? Some spirits, please.
Spirits. Village Retro said, I am very pragmatic, and with all technology, science, CCTV, etc., there is not one shred of evidence that there is anything else other than what we have around us. That is not to say I don't believe.
It seems to be very difficult to get what would pass the scientific test as concrete and hard evidence, because that's not how it seems to work.
No.
Yeah.
Exactly.
He said, my dad came to me in a dream once to say he was okay. It was so real, it's hard to put it into words.
Yeah, that's what we were saying, wasn't it, about dreams?
Yeah, dreams, it's easier to kind of accept the presence of something that maybe shouldn't be there, but your disbelief is suspended, if you like, when you're in dream state usually. So it's a good place to have that communication.
Nick says, the brain is powerful enough to create great art, write novels and powerful poetry. It also has the power to provide us with exactly what we need in times of grief and trauma.
Yes. Again, absolutely. It's far more powerful than anybody ever realises. Part of the joy of living is to find out what you can do with it, I think.
Exactly, Kate. She says, the smell of tar in our childhood, because every council had a man with a barrow and a tar burner who repaired the potholes. Yeah, it was like everywhere, and I always remember it, but now you never say that sort of thing, or smell it, I should say. Susan said, there's no harm in believing anything you like when it's kept to an individual level. The problem arises when fake mediums, etc., try to make money of people's beliefs and vulnerabilities.
Yeah.
The thing is, you get that with everything, don't you? Whether it be someone who's preying on someone's vulnerabilities because they don't understand technology, or they don't understand house build, or you get cowboy builders, you get every single thing has some sort of fake money grabbing side, I suppose, is the best way of putting it.
Yeah. It's true. People are opportunist and desperation. And I mean,
it's not to say. Sorry, carry on.
I was going to say there are, I know, and I've had personal experience of people who I know can do this.
Yes.
The problem is it's not like turning on a tap. It's not always going to work on command.
No.
So if somebody ends up setting themselves up as some kind of celebrity based on that skill and they can't deliver, then they're going to end up having to use all the tricks in the book to try and it doesn't sit well with me. Sorry, Andrea, you were saying.
Oh, no, I was going to say something along the same lines, that it's really not to say that there aren't people that do have that gift and are able to do that. There are people there, yes, totally. It makes me furious when people fake it and, prey on your vulnerability. But I think there are people that are genuine and are able to do it as well.
Susan goes on to say, when beliefs turn into organised religions which want to tell you what to do, what to eat, what to wear, and people go to war over it, and that's a whole different topic. That is true.
Yeah, that's another reason why I've moved away from organised religion.
Yeah.
It gets set in stone, it gets dogmatic, it gets written down by usually a bloke, let's be fair. And, and it doesn't end well because it creates division.
And it's a shame because that wasn't the original intention of religion, was it? It was something that was supposed to unite people, and
exactly.
ended up dividing. And even within that one religion, you just have so many divisions, or people that are judgmental towards others. Like, going back to the Catholic Church, there were so many people that were not perfect, but they judged other people, and they were some of the worst offenders.
Yeah, it's a known thing, isn't it? The most vociferous are usually the ones you want to watch out for. The most dangerous. Yeah, and really any kind of what do they call it now? Where it's got not extremism, but where someone's fundamentalist about something like this is the right way and everybody else is wrong. Whether it's ideologies, whether it's religion or whatever, that's when the warning alarm should go off.
Paula said, I know it sounds a bit mad, but I had a goldfish once that I knew had died. I suddenly and abruptly became overwhelmed with this knowledge, and whilst shopping, I got home and sure enough, she was floating.
Yeah, it's not always the great big things. It can be the little things, your pets, people you're close to, animals you're close to particularly. Yeah.
It's like we said that we were in America when Monty passed away, and we kind of knew. I just felt so off that whole day. I just didn't feel right, and I kept saying to Nick and Ellen, I just feel weird today. I don't feel right. And it was really odd. And we went to the beach and we got a meal, and there was a dog that was very similar to Monty, and Nick went, oh, I'm missing my Monty, and he went over and talked to the lady and fussed the dog and said, oh, we've got a dog like this. And I felt compelled then to message his mum and say, how's Monty doing? And she didn't reply. And in that moment, I knew something was wrong.
Yeah, that's it. We do know these things, and it's valid and important. I think that's the thing. It's an animal. No.
Does that come down there an intuition, though, like a connection,
very much so.
Village Retro says there are 5 main religions, so at least 4 of them are all wrong. So most of us are going in the wrong direction.
Yes, they talk about the big 5, don't they? And it leaves out an awful lot of smaller and more interesting ones. But I mean, that's the idea, isn't it? People think their way's the right way and everyone else has lost the plot. But that's the problem.
Chrissy said, when I was 13, my dad died suddenly. I knew, though, before my mum told me. I heard a voice in my head telling me it was all very strange.
Yeah.
Wow.
I had a similar experience when my granddad died, and it's a bit stranger than that. It was because he had Alzheimer's and he was in a hospital in Milton Keynes. So I was living with my nan at the time. Nick was at police training college, and I was like 8 months pregnant with Ellen. So we were going back and forth to Milton Keynes, and quite often sleeping in the hospital or sleeping on, my uncle's couch or whatever. So I would go home or back to my nan's for the weekend, and she would stay there, and Nick would come home for the weekend. And on this particular Friday night, he was coming home the Saturday morning. I was on my own, and I just had this very strange feeling. And then there was this crashing noise in my nan and granddad's bedroom. I thought, what on earth's that? And I opened the door, and above their bed, they had photographs of my great-grandparents. And where my granddad's bed was, on the right-hand side, the picture of my great-granddad had flown off. That's all I can describe it as. It had flown off the wall, and it was in the middle of the room on the floor. It hadn't just dropped off the wall. It was in the middle of the room. And I looked at it and I went, oh my God, my granddad's gone. And I was waiting for the call all night. Nobody called me. And I spoke to my nan the next day, and she said, well, he's still here. And I was really confused. And when I went back on the Monday, I went over because he was kind of unconscious. They had him so drugged up on morphine because he was in so much pain.
Yeah.
I went over to say hello to him, and immediately I was like, he's gone. He's not there. He's gone. And I couldn't say hello to him. I couldn't touch him or go near him. And when we left the hospital later that day, I just broke down and told my mum, I said, he's gone. He's not there. And it was a couple of days later, it was actually September the 11th, 2001, when his body died. And it was the weirdest thing, because somebody said to me that on the night that happened, with the photograph falling off the wall, he had been unconscious for weeks. And the lady opposite him said that he had yelled out, "Jean, Jean." And that was my nan's cousin, who had already died. And I think she'd come to take him.
Yeah.
And his soul had gone before his body had. And I just knew it. Just looking at him, I was like, oh my God, he's not there. Just knew it. It's just the weirdest thing. And he hadn't spoken a word for weeks, because he was unconscious.
I had a similar thing with my granddad, in that the day he died, he hadn't spoke or said a word for about 6 weeks, and he was just lying facing the wall in his bed. And I used to just go in and I mean, I was like 11, 12, whatever, and I used to just tell him stories about school. I did this and I did this, Grandad, and blah, blah, blah. Just waffled nothing at him. And the day, so I went in, and he was sort of half propped up, like not properly, but he was like, head was up and his eyes were open, and he was facing the front. And he just said, the only thing he said was be a good girl for your mum. And he hadn't spoke for weeks, and in my head I was like, oh, Granddad's getting better, because, like, you know what I mean. And he died that night.
Yeah.
Just kind of weird. But they say that you sometimes get more, like, they sort of come back a little bit before they go properly. I don't know.
Sometimes,
Yeah.
If they got something they want to say, or something, some awareness of it being near the time. Yeah.
Hi, Steve. Haven't seen you for a bit.
Oh,
yeah. I don't know. I mean, I still think, obviously, none of us know the true whatever going to happen until, you know what I mean? Like, again, if I go before you, I'll come and tell you, or whatever. I don't know. Send you a note. And it would be good if we could.
It would be a game changer, wouldn't it? Really, but
yeah. But yeah, I've heard many people say things about, like, what, being close to death and coming back from, seeing a light or whatever it is.
It's hard to know whether that's due to conditions in the brain, though. It is difficult to know.
Well, the thing was, when I was really poorly, when I was in the hospital, and, like, they were going to put us in intensive care, I did see a light, but I'm sure it was just the light above us, what they use to, like, see better. I'm sure it was just that, I remember seeing a light there, and I was just good. Yeah.
Yes, I mean, one of the things, quite a number of years ago, my high priestess, if you like, the lady who introduced me into the coven that I was with at the time and initiated me and everything, she got very, very ill, and she had cancer, and she went into hospital, and we were all going down to see her, and we go as a group, and they make allowances for us to all kind of meet together and what have you. They were very good down there. But what ended up happening is that there were two people who were very near the hospital. So when they felt that it was getting right near the time, they actually went down there and did a kind of a ritual to help her pass through.
Yeah.
And I have a copy of it, because they gave it to those of us who were very close to her, and it was really based on what her beliefs were, which is she felt that she'd be lying on a couch, and she'd see a neck curtain at Weiss and French doors, and then a handsome man would come in, take her hand, and take her out into the garden, and that would be her leaving. That was how she saw it. And they actually worked a kind of a ritual around that and a big meditation for her, and actually walked her through it, although she wasn't conscious. And then she did. Once that was done, she actually passed very quickly, about a couple of hours later. And but it was kind of a really good way to go. She got the very best of what she wanted, and had people who loved her and supported her with her throughout. And I thought that was amazing. And I mean, admittedly, since I've had communications with her in dreams and stuff, but I always know if Mo's about, because there's the smell of fags in my house, and nobody smokes in this house or has done, so I know when I smell that, like, oh, hi Mo, come to keep an eye on me. Just see what's happening.
John says, I floated around the ceiling in hospital, but I think it was the drugs. I have a very vivid memory of that.
Possible. Yeah, drugs do affect the brain, so they're going to create strange effects.
Yeah. Sylvia says, before my nana passed, her last words to me were, I'll see you on the 4th. I thought she meant the 4th of the month. With the passing of years, I now think she meant the 4th time I face my end, as I have been near death 3 times since then. So see you next time, Nan.
Oh
wow.
Yes, well. Wow.
Yeah, a big thing, I suppose.
I think Steve and Bad Wolf are having their own face off there.
Yeah.
Go for it.
She is definitely not from Birmingham.
It's from Wolverhampton. Even I know this, and I know nothing.
I always say that he's from Birmingham as well, because he says I'm from Tennessee.
Tennessee?
I don't know where he got it from. It just he does. I think he just said Laney Rain and decided that was a Tennessee belle or something. That's what he was saying.
Oh, I see. Yeah, it does have a ring to it, though, doesn't it?
Laney Rain. Maybe.
Don't blame Nick, Susan.
Oh, it's all Nick's fault, right? Yes.
It probably was sometime at one point.
Well, yeah, very possibly.
Yeah. So I think we've pretty much covered all of it, haven't we? Have we? Is there anything that
we've had a pretty good whiz around a very big subject? Yeah,
it is a huge subject, and it leads, like a lot of things, it leads to other things. So this has thoughts of like what else is in the universe. It also has thoughts of religion and things like that as well. So there's like, this connects a lot, doesn't it, with other things? So yeah,
that's
we'll
it.
have to do one. We'll have to do one on aliens and things and UFOs and whatever else is in the universe, and also on religion, really.
It's a bit.
Yeah, we've brushed it a couple of times, but
we have.
We haven't really got into
a lot of people's lives, and it cannot always have a positive influence, as we've seen.
Indeed. Yeah. Well, this is a drop in the ocean, isn't it? The subject is so vast. Like I said to you the other night, I could talk about it till the cows come home.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and the lovely thing is everyone does have a different take on it, and that's important, that people feel free that they can, that there aren't any absolutes or rights and wrongs. It is an experiential thing, just like anything else. And I guess we'll all know one day.
Yeah,
told you so.
Will all be revealed.
Exactly. I mean, I know a lot of my Wiccan kind of pagan friends have the idea of what they call going over the Rainbow Bridge. And
I know a lot of people believe that for animals as well.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah, or going to the Summerlands, which is the kind of classic kind of Wiccan. And actually, it depends what you believe. Some people believe that's kind of like a holding place that you go to before you get reincarnated again. Other people feel that's the first level of many levels that you go through of your spirit,
Mm-hmm.
And that's often the place where people feel you meet and know and love those again, that you've seen before. So it may be an experience that people get when they in the process of
Yes.
moving through. But who knows? Who knows?
No.
True.
We don't know. No, we're not supposed to know yet, are we really?
Oh God, no.
No.
Anyway, thank you for joining us, though, Andrea. It's been fab.
Yeah,
Really
I've really enjoyed it. Thank you for asking me.
No problem. If anyone else wants to join us anytime with the subject, if you've got anything you want to discuss, and not Lainey dressing up as Dolly, part of the conversation, and do you know what I mean? Just try to be serious. Yeah. But yeah, if anyone does want to, please feel free to contact either me or Heather. As I said earlier on, there is the link to both Andrea and Heather's channel in the description box below.
I'm not here next week.
No, we're not here next week. The week after. Are you away for 2 weeks or one?
One.
Right, so the week after, not Tuesday coming. Yeah, Tuesday after. Joan says, can Andrea come back for the UFO episode? She certainly can, if she wants to.
Yeah, if you'll have me, I'll come back.
I will. No, Steve, we won't discuss Lainey dressed as Dolly. That's if you want to come on the show and do that yourself, that's fine.
Yes, come and
just
discuss.
Got back with everybody shopping just in time.
Just in time. Lovely.
Yeah. Anyway, other than that, thank you to everybody for being in the side chat and discussing it. It was really interesting. And we will see you not next week, but the week after on Heather's channel. And yeah, bye-bye. Bye, everybody. Bye.